good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Disembodied Hands, Quindy and Justin. Sorry for getting started a little late this morning. It's been that kind of morning. Yeah, I could use some coffee today, Crowley. Thank you for the Kiri face. I was just thinking about her last night. I can't wait to get another puppy. Let's see here. Let's go over here. Oh, I need my palette. See, it is that kind of morning. Let me get it real quick. Maybe I don't need coffee, but I need some chocolate or something. I don't know. So it's a bit early in the day for chocolate. Yay. Okay. Whew, I have a brain, I promise. Mostly. It really is that kind of day. I just found out that we had tickets to go see a show in the city tomorrow, and it like totally disrupted my week. Where I was like planning, time to do things. But David and I had both forgotten because the tickets must have gone to our old address. Because he did not put in an address change as early as I did. All right, so Vitanis. We are still working, trying to figure out. I think today I'm going to block in some black on that. Let's get in focus here. We need to be in focus. Focus. I have no attention span, Stefan's World. No attention span. It's squirrel. It's a Friday at the end of a week that where my schedule just didn't work out the way I wanted it to. So, all right. We're going to bring more blue into our teal. We're going to continue to highlight the blue, although I don't know how much higher I really want it at this point. We're going to bring in black as an accent. We're going to do the belts in black. And we're going to kind of go from there. When you've got a model that's this complicated, you really have to take it kind of one step at a time. And because we have three strong colors now, we've got the teal, we've got the blue, and we've got the red-orange. We really need to go neutral for a lot of this other stuff. Like, when you keep reaching for colors, you only get yourself in trouble at this point. So you really want to start reaching for neutrals once you have three strong colors. Even once you have two, if you don't want to go with three. But we can use a fourth color for a tiny accent, and I can tell you that that's probably going to be a yellow-orange because we have a lantern down here. And we'll have to consider whether we're going to do a little bit of a lighting effect down there. So that, however, is not for immediate future. That is merely me noting that this is a thing. And we have room to put another color accent over here, but there's also a skull on there. There's little scrolls. He has a bunch of crap going on. Going yellow-orange also works with any gold that we want to do because they're going to have similar color palettes. Oh, hello, Bob and Julie. I didn't need more sleep. I feel like I need another 3 hours in the day to just get all my crap done. It's that kind of week. It's that kind of Friday where I was I was all on it for the first part of this month. I was so good and so on everything. And then, boom, this week just blew up. Unexpected crap hit my plate that I wasn't expecting. That's what unexpected crap does. So let me see. I need some black. I'm going to use actual black for this. I'm probably going to highlight it with a bluish color. I may even add in a little Death Knight black and just bring it up that way. Oh, I can't believe it either. And then next week's Thanksgiving, so I have very few days to get work done. This is how, I don't know if it's how every month goes. I'm going to have to keep an eye on myself now, but this is definitely how NaNoWriMo month goes. So National Novel Writing Month. You start out and you're for the first week, it's all awesome and you're all excited. And then the second week, you're oh, it's such a slog. It's a slog. I can't do it. And then for the third week, every scheduling foobar that can hits you all at once. So it's I wish I was off work, Tharmel. Morning, Shadow Raven. All right, so let's block in some black. Let's kind of use this to set some dark. So we know we probably want his facial hair to be black, so we're going to just reinforce that. I already blocked it in walnut. And we can go dark brown with it. Dark brown's a good neutral, and it lets us highlight it a little bit easier, although it also would conflict a little bit with his horns. So we do have to kind of keep that in mind. I also did keep his horns somewhat dark so that they wouldn't be too distracting. So we'll have to think about it. And just checking to see. He looks like... I can't decide if that was supposed to be an earring, or I think his ear is just fine. He doesn't have an earring. I think that's actually hair. So yeah, at this point you have to kind of stop and ask yourself, what is all this crap? So we'll start blocking in some black just to get some darks in. Also putting black on the model in other places is going to kind of give us a visual cue to work from. Then this is the darkest part. How light does everything else look? We definitely could use some lighter colors. So we are going to be bringing in some bone down here. And we've got the bone up there on his horns, which we just kind of sketched in. We're going to be bringing in some gold and some yellow. We're probably going to end up with a lot of brown. These little tubes are probably going to be accent colors down here. I probably will go with like a red, orange, and yellows to kind of like pop back and forth. We can go with yellow on tiny things like this, and it won't be too distracting. But it would be best if we make this bracer up here like a yellow gold. Actual black, yeah, right. I never use it, Turgeon. That's why I say that. I never use actual black. Like, almost never. When I want black, I reach for walnut or liner, blue liner, nightmare black. It is a very rare circumstance where I reach for black. Black is like... Using black on a model is like telling the viewer not to look here. So usually when you see me painting something black, I'm not actually using black. Because I just feel like it's visually dead. And the only thing that will bring it back from that here is me using a colored black to bring highlights in. But I didn't want to paint this with Death Knight because I want a solid coat, and liners are not good at solid coats. Also, you've got your SKU wrong. 666 is Omega Black, not actual black. There we go. Got some bubbles. Just blow on them. They will pop eventually. So just blocking this in. Now putting black here is going to make our blue look lighter. See? You would think that maybe black and dark blue would not give you enough contrast, but here on the side of the model, we're less worried about that. And the teal is being highlighted up light enough that I don't think the black is going to be a problem. So yeah, we're going to use black to kind of define stuff on this model because we've got so many colors going on. And that's kind of why I'm reaching for actual black instead of an off black or something that's close to a black or a liner color. Because, oops, blurf. Because I really want something actually that's not reactive. It's not going to have too much of a color hint that's going to maybe, clash with or disrupt or be too close to something else on the model. So we're going to do that there. I've got this is probably all bone. I need to think about what this is gonna be. Maybe these are bronze and gold. Maybe that's black leather. Yeah. I'm gonna go with it, and then if I have to change it, I will. I may decide to make this brown instead. Like I said. So what we're on a model that's so very busy, like this guy, what you're essentially using black to do is it's almost like you're taking your lining and doubling down on it. Because any little area between interesting details, or that's just kind of like a backdrop to other stuff like this this big belt, you can make that black, and then everything you put against it will stand out more. Just like when you line against something, it makes it stand out more. So black here, and black's pretty okay actually on that, because I can still see that. It's sandwiched between the teal, and it's going to be gold on the other side, so I'm still going to see that black. But yeah, normally I do not like using pure black, but it's pretty much on a model that's going to have as many colors on it as this guy, and that has as much details as this guy. It's self-defense. So we're going to say his armlets are black leather with bands of gold or bronze. Fancy schmancy. He does look like a guy who's dressed up to go out on the dungeon. The dungeon town. Paint the dungeon red. And yeah, that's going to be the handle of the staff right there. So I want to make sure to keep that pretty defined. All right. Now let's do this big belt. And what we may end up doing is actually, we haven't highlighted the blue on this fringe at all, but we'll probably end up bringing that up a bit. I think I want to make, can't decide. That's leather, that's leather. They kind of feel like they should be the same piece. Although this might end up going a different color, maybe metal. We'll see. I will actually, I've got two choices here with these little bandolier things, which could be anything. They could be little bones, they could be anything. But I can just paint them all black, and then I'll have to underpaint to get them to stand out. But it's probably easier to just paint them all black and then use some white to underpaint the pouches and everything and the little tubes. Probably makes more sense because it's going to go faster that way than trying to paint around all these little tiny details. So if you don't have great brush control, this will still require brush control because you still must, you know, paint the belt without painting the stuff around it. But you don't have to worry about getting around all these little guys. And I think that pouch right on the belt, I'm also going to take black. Because this pouch around his neck, I'll probably take brown. So blacks and browns are your main, like, neutrals. Your light neutral is cream color. Don't take it too yellow. Light browns tend to be either orange or yellow, so they don't necessarily make great neutrals. And then we've got this belt. And it's hard to tell what's going on here. When in doubt, just paint it and get back to it later. Here, with all these vials together, I can't really see between them, so I'm not going to do what I did above and just paint them all black. I'm going to actually leave them and make sure that I line around them and between them and something else. But because they're all together, we really don't have to paint them black first. I painted these black up here because there was black leather between them. Yo, Rex. Alrighty. Then we've got this chain coming down off the belt. It's just a lot going on. But as we block this out, it gets more clear. Since we're using black, and this is the reason to use black, anything against that black that's at all light is going to stand out. So because we're using this darkest thing, we're saying don't mind these belts. They're just belts. They're not important. They're the least important thing on the model. The things on his belt are a little bit more important, so at least the black there will help them to stand out. But the most important, you know, is probably the gestural, the staff, the glowing. You know, if we decide to do the lantern glowing down here, that's actually dicey, but we can. Good afternoon, Gel Tip. So yeah, so that's why we're using black as a background here, because these belts, they are the least important part of the model, and there's so much going on already. We really want to de-emphasize a few of these details. Otherwise, when you look at the model, you just get overwhelmed. There's so much stuff. What is it all? You know, it's just like real life. There we go. So just block that in. This skull is kind of like a stylized skull. I don't know. It's kind of like butts up against this dagger, and I'm not sure. It's probably just a decorative bit that's behind a few things here. I'm gonna block in the other eye socket. So maybe not a real skull, maybe a real skull. It looks kind of flattened, so it's hard to tell. It does stick out a bit, but it could just be a decorative part that that the lantern's coming out of. So I think I'm gonna paint it like that and not as a real skull. So it'll probably end up being gold. And then we've got this lovely, lovely detailed spell. Probably it's a scroll case because he's a warlock. At this point, we can also use our black to line this chain just to make it stand out. Actually, I'm going to put a little bit more water into my black if I'm going to line with it. Just a little bit. The black is a heavier bodied base, and so if you want it to line nicely, you should thin it. Make sure that it comes off your brush nice and smooth. Remember to turn the model so that you can get a good angle. A comfortable brush angle when you're doing fine detail like lining. It's going to set you up for success and help you build brush control to do so. Good. And if we want, we can even line around the little links. It's good practice. Again, very little paint on the brush. Lining around the links is the hardest. Doing the center is easy. You just put a dash down the middle. And that defines the links on both sides. You may end up having to paint it again once you put the silver or gold over the top, but I like to kind of line around it anyway. Brings out the details, and it'll tell me also if there's any details that have been filled in that I'm going to need to kind of paint plastic surgery. Like on this link, it's a little bit close, so I'm kind of going to have to just paint that black to suggest the 3D. Sometimes on little things like chains, some links will end up getting kind of filled in the molding process just because it's such shallow detail. Alrighty, and then we get that chain goes right down here and it links up with our lantern, which we already have some lining around. All right. Let's double check. Probably going to be gold, maybe some bone, brown, yellow, and red orange. Haven't decided. Maybe red orange. Maybe brown, bone colored gold, bone. I think I'm going to do the little edge bits of this canteen in a black leather canteen holder. And then we'll highlight all this black. Yeah, the holidays in general are stressful for people, and it's hard sometimes to make time for your hobby. Just don't beat yourself up about it. The best advice I can give you. Sometimes it pays to I know when I get stressed out, a lot of times I reach for computer games instead of painting, but then I end up feeling worse because computer games just don't give me the same rewards. So do look at yourself sometimes and say, hey, could I, not just stare at the TV and maybe just do a little painting? Maybe I would feel better. Not always, and you should, do what feels best for you, but in stressful situations, sometimes the art will help. As long as you don't attach I should be doing this instead of this to it. Just do it because you want to. Remember, only 20 minutes is pretty good painting time. Typing's overrated. Correct typing on a Twitch stream anyway. The only sad thing is that you can't really edit yourself here. So you may as well just abandon yourself to it, Dogfather. So I'm just got some lining since I've got this black and I've got all these details to fill in. If you feel like lining, go ahead and do it. It'll save you a little work later. I do normally not pre-line everything, but on very complicated models, I have been known to do so, just to get it kind of straight in my mind what everything is and how I need to think about painting it. Normally, pre-lining, I feel, doesn't do a lot for you. You tend to paint over it anyway when you start filling stuff in. But when you've got a lot of little details, it sometimes will help just to go, oh yeah, right, this dagger has a little cap on it, so it's got a little end piece that I need to paint metallic, stuff like that. Alrighty, and there is actually a leather piece holding these guys in, so I do want to paint that black. If your work makes you that miserable, Dogfather, it might not be worth it. I know maybe, you're stuck in your job. I know a lot of people are. But definitely take time for yourself because, it's more important. I just feel bad when I see people in jobs they hate. There we go. All right. So we've got that. I'm going to highlight. I'm probably going to line around the top of this too. I mean, why not line metallics? On 28mm, I line everything more shadow. And if, how to put this? if you're doing metallics on a 28, you almost have to line it, just like you almost have to line if you're doing a 28 in general, unless you use a lot of contrast between colors next to each other on a model. And the reason is metallics are already difficult enough on a 28 millimeter to get to look real. So you're going to need to kind of punch that out and bring out those details, especially if there are a lot of small details, which is when I tend to go to NMM on 28s because there usually are fiddly details. And then metallics, it's hard to make them show up, but lining will help you do that. I'm sure there are computer things that, like, I don't know if there's like a game for it. I don't know if somebody's gamified learning to draw Pendrake, and you certainly could. I'm sure that, I mean, there's certainly a lot of art programs out there that have very easy user interfaces to muck around with. I kind of feel like the assumption is with software developers that art programs are fun as they are. So if you can just make them a really easy interface, you don't need to put a game around them. You just need a good, like, interactive tutorial. But I could be wrong on that. Maybe there is something out there that's gamifying the art process. Yeah, I mean, on 28 mil, I really do think line all the things is the answer. Because, especially on a model like this, where you just need all these details to stand out. If you don't line on this sucker, it's all going to run together. And everything's just going to be blobs. I would never do metallics on this guy, though, because of that, because he's got too much going on. And I would feel like I'd never get some of these little details to stand out in metallics. We have a lot of tiny details here. I need this to be darkened in. All right. Think we've got all of that. I don't think we need any black there. I don't think we need any black there. I may change my mind. Oh, does Habitica do that with art too? I looked at Habitica. I'm pretty good at building habits, though, these days. I've read enough books on the subject, and I know how to set myself up for success. But, yeah, I mean, whatever works is really the answer. All right. Oh, yeah. Really, well, this guy's really bright. I mean, he's the opposite, right? He has a lot of very, very bright light colors. All right, bone. But let's do our black highlights, actually. So now that we painted all this black and totally lost definition on a lot of this stuff, do you see, though? Do you see what I mean? You paint something black and the eye just goes right away from it. Even though this used to have a lot of interesting detail, now that I've painted it black, you just don't look there. You're looking elsewhere on the model. So that's what I mean when I say that painting something black is a message to the viewer not to look at it. And to reverse that, if you want the eye to eventually land on that place, you have to highlight and really in such a way as that you catch the eye. Yeah, I mean, Jennifer Haley had a muted paint style, and she, like, was world famous. Like, still is among many painters. Jen did muted colors for eons. That was her shtick. She was one of the first people to really go muted over here on this side of the ocean. And she loved pastels and grayed out colors. And Yes, that's what neutrals are good for. They make everything else work better together, Crowley. Good. Very observant of you to notice that. But yeah, I mean, I go back and forth. Like, you know, Noli's very muted color scheme. Like, very, very muted. This is like this brown and this red and this green. They're all muted colors. She has a little spot of like little bit of brighter stuff on her purple beads on her necklace that I need to work on. But like in general, once I highlight those beads, they also will be muted and the gold will be muted. So more contrast is more important than muted versus bright. DDH, you've got it there. That's exactly. Because you don't need to like do necessarily brighter, but you do need to do more contrast, especially if you're working in 28. 28 millimeter requires a little extra. So let's use Death Knight Black. Let's drop a drop of white in it, which is, you know, one of my favorite ways to get cool highlights. So let's do 4 drops of DK Black. Because it's actually a little bit weaker than Blue Liner. So I'm going to do 4 drops and 1 drop of pure white. That's probably going to hit it like a hammer. But yeah, lining helps with contrast at 28 for sure. Because then that's your first level of shading. So let's pop a drop of white in this. And see what it turns into. Death Knight Black, of course, being a near black with a bit of blue and violet in it. I'm going to grab 1 drop of water. And see what that does. All right, that's not bad. So it brings it up to kind of a blue-purple, gray purple. A lot more, you guys can kind of see, but if I actually zoomed out and got some black in frame, you might be able to see better. Here, hold on. Other way. Boom. There we go. That's the color more like it is. So that's the color we've got. Using the giant black base always helps. The camera needs not just white around it for it to show the color. It's actually maybe just a shade darker than you see it on camera. But that's a pretty good highlight, especially because it's a little see-through. You can see there on the edge of the palette that it's not a super solid color. So that's going to make it easy to layer with. So this is actually probably a good start as far as the difference between this color. I'm guessing this is like a 7 or 8. Where is my color wheel? Come here, color wheel. Or sorry, this color wheel is kind of in reverse. It's going to be a value 3 or 4, I'm guessing. Yeah, value 3. So on the grayscale. So it's still pretty dark, even though it looks, because I don't think it's quite, yeah, the 4, if you look at the 4 against it, you see how the 4 is definitely lighter. Then you move over to the 3, you move over to the 2, and you can see, well, it could be between a 2 and a 3. So it's probably right on the line there. So it is actually, when you consider that 0 is or at value 1 is total black, it's very close. So even though they look, because they're right next to each other, they look like they're very different. But in reality, on a grayscale, they're not that different at all. So it's actually a good highlight color because it's about 2 steps up. Auto draw. What does it do, Pendrake? Like, what is its purpose? Let's see if this is too thick. Yeah, I can see brush strokes. See those brush strokes? You bet. So more water. I dropped 2 drops in it with my brush. And I've still got my black out so I can blend it in. Sometimes when you want to get that transition from black up to the highlight, you will need to wet blend, or wet blending will make it a little easier for you. So if you pop some black onto that and then grab that blue purple and you kind of blend them together, you're going to get a nicer transition. You can see how much, when I thin it, I get a lot less color. But I don't want a lot of color here. I just want to bring up the folds. And I want to do so in such a way that it's not going to fight with any of my other colors. And since this is a muted color on a model that is mostly not muted, I want to be very careful about how I use it. I don't want to use too much. Just want to bring up that fold just a little bit. So just bringing up that area just a little bit. This, it should be. This should be a neutral. Like, the fact that I chose Death Knight Black, it's not really a blue. It's more of an indigo gray. And it should look very gray, because the more close you get to Blue War Shadow, the more you're going to fight with this. These colors are close together. If this was more vibrant, these colors would be very close together, and the closer together two colors are, the more they will fight, especially when one is muted and the other is vibrant. But because I'm going much more toward gray than blue here, this color is reading as very different from this, because the vibrancy of this blue is going to make this color look less blue. That's, again, it's how it looks against other colors, what is around it. If this was up against a red cape and there was no blue elsewhere on the model, this highlight would look blue. Oh my god, that's funny, Pendrake. Oh my gosh. That's kind of funny. I drew this terrible thing. Guess what it is? Oh, I bet it guesses some really funny things too. It would be cool if it didn't just fill it in, but actually taught you a little bit about what you did wrong. So that you could get better, instead of just having the program fill it in. Yeah, okay. So yeah, because this cape is so blue, it's going to make this color look more gray. Which is good, because then they're not going to clash. But look, I have a highlight. It's working, because it still looks black. That's funny. Auto draw. So once I've got my sideways brush stroke, I can use more of a vertical stroke if I want to. Don't want these highlights to get big. You still want a lot of black so that it still reads black. I'm probably going to do another level of highlight, but we'll see. I'm going to go up here. It'll be a lot trickier to do up here because we've got so little room. I see there are tiny little studs on this leather, but I'm going to just paint right over them with a highlight. I'm just going to do a line edge highlight on this because I really don't have room to do anything else. When you have a tiny amount of space, just give up and do the edge highlight. Because there's going to be so much more that you have to worry about all around that thing. And the edge highlight is all you really have room for. Color relationships are where color theory gets complicated. Like, the basics of color theory are just the color wheel. Just like what colors go together, reaching for contrast. Most of the time, that's going to keep you out of trouble. It's when you're starting to get more complicated, and then you've got colors changing color on you because of what you put them next to, and you weren't prepared for it. That can be when color theory gets to the point where people are like, I don't get it. Which is why you should always start with just the simple, the color wheel. The triads. Light and dark contrast. Warm and cool contrast. It's actually the funky thing is that this gray, even though it's blue indigo, like is warmer than the blue because the indigo, the purple component drags it toward red. So you actually get a warmer black than the cold blue cape. It's weird. Okay, so we're just like, as I can say, we're just like putting tiny little highlights in along the top of the leather here. And that brings out our details again, just a little bit. And lest you all think I'm infallible, I still make plenty of color theory mistakes, often relating to color relationships and how things shift. Though as I paint with these rules in mind, I get better and better at just avoiding the problems. It's just a practice thing. Nobody's brilliant at it out the gate. So I just put a little bit of a highlight along the top edge of this leather on both these sides. I'm going to leave, remember, you got to leave it. If you want it to look black, it has to stay black. Yeah, I probably need to do like color theory in like 5 stages, like PDFs for, maybe I'll take a break from Pentads. Do a couple of series. Like talk about just basic and then using your color wheel. And I think I did do a use your color wheel video, but setting it up in a simple set of like 5 PDFs would be probably valuable to people. Just short little ones. Break it down into bite-sized chunks. That's what Patreon's good at. But yes, I have a Patreon. Thank you for the lead-in, Warshadow. Patreon.com/paintingbig. We do some fantastic stuff on there. We have a lot of fun. I do have some color theory stuff already in $5 tier. And I've got 3 years, almost 3 years of content at this point. And that's a lot of content when I do 4 pieces a month at least. Lots of content. So yeah, it's an excellent buy right now because, you know, if you actually paid $10, you'd get 3 years, like the number of months. So 36 times 4, you get a lot of videos and PDFs. Let's put that for $10. All the content you can download. A lot. And I'm thinking of doing a promotion again in January. That if you sign up for $5, you get the previous year's $10 content for free. Which I did one a couple of years ago, and it went over very well, so. And that means everybody who's already at $5 tier also gets that content. So yeah. Okay, just wanted to harden that edge a little bit, get that a little more crisp there. Up here we've got some details coming out now. You can see that it's not just a blob of black anymore. You can see things. We'll continue to work down here. Some of the very small black bits, like this little bandolier here that goes over these little potion flasks, that's so small that I may not even do this highlight on it. Or if I do, it's going to be tiny. I might wait and do a bigger, just the next highlight up on it. The smaller the area, the less room you have to highlight, the less you should mess around with intermediary highlights and just do a little pop of final highlight to bring out the details, especially on something like this, where this is almost certainly leather, so you can suggest it's a little shiny and go a little lighter with the highlight if you want. Speaking of that highlight, I'm about to build it. We're going to grab some brushfuls from our previous and drop another drop of white in there. Thank you for the link, Quindy. And Patreon. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed that I got to 3 years on this, and we're going to keep going. I have some great ideas for the coming year, too. I'm actually really excited about it. Like I said, the color theory one, and there's a lot of other. There's a lot of content that I've done in video that I think would benefit from being done in PDF or revisited with new information. So that's the thing when you've been teaching painting for a while, is what you were doing 3 years ago, you've like learned more, you've gotten better, you've changed it up, you've tried a new thing, and you want to share that thing. So Also, 3 years ago when I started the Patreon, like, I wasn't sure what people actually wanted from it, right? Like, you're doing this, but you're like, well, what is my target audience? Who are they? What do they really like? So now I know that my target audience adores color theory, or at least says it's very bad at it and it needs more teaching. And I've also learned that people really love PDFs. So a lot of the content I put out early on, there's a lot of video, but I think I'm going to move a little bit more PDF heavy this coming year. Because it's something that you don't get on Twitch and YouTube. Like the ability to kind of just break stuff down in steps that you can describe and that people can just reference back. Oh, no problem, Quinny. We just chatted for a bit. I'm just happy that you're here. I'm happy that we are all here today. That's kind of I have a little, like, my 100 days journal makes me write down every day something I'm grateful for. And this morning it was just, I am here. I am in the world. I am able to learn things. And to teach things. So that was my gratitude thing this morning. Do any of the rest of you do that? I know when I first read about this practice, it seemed so hokey, and I was really, it kind of just the thought of it repelled me, but it was part of my 100 days journal, so I started doing it. And now I gotta say, it does feel good to write down something I'm grateful for every day. Like, I did not think I would enjoy it, but I was wrong. Ah, yeah, Quindy. Great. Yeah, don't you love it how they actually, like, look at those fragile stickers? Like, sometimes I think having a fragile sticker is just like a red flag to a bull. Also, yeah, I'm not a FedEx fan. We've been having problems with them. And I know a lot of people who have. Lately, they seem like they have a lot of delays and stuff just gets lost, and yeah, not so much. There we go. So refined, put our next highlight on our black. Now, this is covering up a lot of area. In person, though, this still looks black. It tends to blow out a little bit here on camera. Yeah, especially if I put that there. So I'm trying to, like, find a good, yeah, that's about right. So it still looks black. My highlights have gotten a bit big here, though, so I may want to tackle that back. And maybe glaze. When your black starts to look gray, I'm in, like, UPS. I've always had good UPS guys. Like, the UPS guys that we've had here have like asked me if I needed help when they dropped off something big. They'd be like, "Would you like me to carry that inside for you?" You know, nice people. But yeah, FedEx not so much. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure there are nice people who work at FedEx, but that, and I guess, as I mentioned to David, because the UPS people have been so nice working with Reaper, I also have a good opinion of them. So let's do a glaze. Whenever your black starts to look too gray, it's glaze time. And so putting a really thin layer of black. And you'll freak out because it'll look like too much at first. And maybe I did go too dark, but that's all right. We'll see. But you have to give it a moment. You have to give it a moment to dry. Because we can still see that highlight there. And what this allows you to do then is to come back with your highlights and just hit a very small highlight after you've tamped down some of your previous highlights. And then it'll look black again. Because you've taken down all of that area that you got maybe a little bit too light on. So keep your highlights small on black, very small. And be aware of how the whole area shifts. Yeah? Just retired from UPS? Well, thank you. Thank you for delivering our packages for years and years, Stefan's World. Alrighty. So we still need to get in some highlights on this, that gauntlet that he's got. But I do need to recoat some black on that. Didn't get the most even coat around these rivets. So need to hit that. Need to hit the top of that with a highlight here. Need to get these little guys here. Need to get the belts down there. Yeah, I used the post office for a very long time. But around here, it seems like UPS stores are more convenient to us than post offices. Like, the post offices are not nearly as frequent, which is just so weird. But yeah, my grandparents' address, which my cousin lives at now, is just postal service. It's out rural, very rural. So I totally get it. There we go. So a little bit, tiny little brighter highlight, just a little bit up here on the corner. You notice how against black, every little highlight you make, like, makes a difference. You were internal tech support? Oh, cool. Yeah, I was looking at Patreon's website the other day. They were hiring, and they've got a ton of tech positions open. It's like, I always forget, like, Patreon is a platform, and thus it is like programming. And so most of the jobs at Patreon are programming and data analytics. All right, so just a tiny little highlight at the top there really brings out that upper edge, and it's going to make it stand out against his hair. See? So I'm really taking this highlight that I've just mixed up, this very, very, very bright highlight. I'm thinning it down. I'm using a tiny little tip brush, and I'm putting as fine a line as I could manage along the very upper part of those black areas. And that is bringing out and separating those out from each other. Now, that's probably a little bit too much to bring it down that far, so I'm going to actually go back and glaze it out a little bit. Sweet. Have fun, Thormel. The rest of us are jealous. We want it to be our weekend. So I'm only doing little lined highlights up here, and the result is this still looks black. Most of the surface is still black. And on these little bands that go across these little bone splinters or spell components or whatever they're supposed to be, I really want just a tiny highlight. You just want a little bit. This is where your brush control comes in handy, and also paint consistency. Like, having good brush control and good paint consistency is what allows you to do these tiny details and to hit those tiny things with accuracy. And practicing those tiny things will absolutely make you better at it. But it is a combination of a very good brush, the correct paint consistency, how little paint you keep on your brush. Notice how little paint is on my brush right now. You can hardly even see it. And then brush control. So it's a combination of all the things that you build by painting. Yeah, that's pretty good. Probably want to... That upper edge is still not, like, totally awesome for me. It's a little better. Alrighty. Down here, belts. Once again. Now here it's going to be less evident when I highlight it because it's not up against a bunch of black like it is up here. Instead, it's got these light bottles behind them. So I'm going to make sure that I get my black all around that, not just up on those little bands, but also lining right next to them between these little bottles. I was just thinking the other day about just how long I've been alive and how much has happened in the course of that. I always like to do this, like when my grandma passed, you know, kind of being cognizant of the fact that she'd, like, when she was a girl, like, they had horses, not cars. Like, it makes me wonder what we'll see in the next 20, 30 years. Like, when I was a kid, we had a black and white TV. That was it. Color TVs were out there, but they were too expensive. Now look at us. streaming miniature painting over the interwebs, which didn't even exist when I was a kid either. There. Blocking that darker shadow there. Just doing a little bit of lining around here, and then don't really have any room for any highlights over here on the belt or there. Do have room here to pop an extra highlight in. So I'm going to my first NaNoWriMo gathering. Well, it's not really. It's more my new writing club. We'll see how that goes this Sunday. I was looking for people to hang out and write with, so hopefully they will be nice people. So I was missing having a writing group. Just like with Paint Club, it's fun to get together with other people and write. There we go. Little tiny highlights on that black leather right there. There we go. Just little line highlights here. I'll just set up that area and make things stand out from each other so you can see the overlapping belts. Oh no. Penrick, that sounds like it was not a very good result. But yeah, I was just talking to David about that the other day, about cars and how people, when cars first came around, like, people didn't want them. Like, they were like, oh, those are terrible. Horses are so much better. Bye, crows. Yeah, that's crazy, right, Turgeon? It's really cool, though. I mean, the Sunset history is really cool. Yeah, that is funky. Shadow Raven. That's a long time. I want to live to be 104 years old. Alrighty. Let's see here. Now let's tackle this silly elbow. Got to get something on it. Probably get a little highlight kind of running down this side here. It'll have studs too. It has metal studs, so that'll help it stand out. But I also just need to get it. Well, weren't the drums originally used to like signal changes in movement, cadence, and maneuvering? So nowadays, you've got like little, you know, you can do that digitally, I guess. I don't know. I know so little about the armed forces and deployment and troop movement and anything else. Of course, now we don't have big blocks of troops like all moving out necessarily together either, I would think. I don't know. You are back in Greece. Hey, that's cool. Isn't it cool how life loops, Steven's World? I find that it does. It does go full circle. I mean, look at me. I was born here. I was born in Mountain View, California. And now, you know, 48 years later, I guess based on when I moved, 47 years later, I am back in exactly the town I was born in. It's just weird. I would like to go to Greece, though. Large squares of musket troops, yeah, or rifles, as in Napoleonic era. Early riflemen. There we go. So a highlight here. This is a rounded leather thing, so it's going to have a highlight moving down the front. We're going to put it right down there, too. And then to make that look shinier, we're going to bring in a higher highlight. Going to bring in a tiny, I think I went that a little bit far to the side with that one. I'm going to bring it, actually block that out and bring in a new one. But there's also a rivet right where I want to put my highlight, which is annoying. Summer's the best time. Maybe next summer we can go to Europe. I was thinking about coming for World Expo, but World Expo sadly is in the Netherlands, which is not close to Greece. Hello, Dr. Aziel. Pleasant to meet you, or re-meet you if you've been here before. I'm just trying to get the highlights right on this black. That's a little better. It's getting there. It's a bit better. Little sleepy, a little busy, a little like the week didn't get as much done as I wanted to, but other than that, pretty good. How about you? Some weeks are just like that. You want to get a lot done, you think you can get a lot done, and then things happen to distract you, and next thing you know, you're behind. There we go, a little bit more of a highlight there. Probably a little bit too much highlight, but we don't want to muck around with this too much. It is a very not important part of the model. So overall, I just have to look at everything and say, well, that is reading much sharper than any other black on the model, though, so I think I probably do need to tone it down. Was it Steven's World? That's cool. All right, so we glazed with black to knock that down to hopefully keep it in line with the rest of the black on the figure, which is up here and down here. These two look like the same, like they're good. Balanced, but that one was sticking out just a little bit too much. Have to let it dry and see if I manage to successfully take it down. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh, that's a bummer. Yeah, I mean, bag castings happen. I find they're more rare these days, depending. It depends on who you're getting it from. But I know a lot of when I order a resin bus and 75 millimeter, it seems like they are very high quality these days, which is very nice. There we go. I think I've got all this black highlighted to the point I want it. Finally. Oh, this guy under his arm. This is going to be in shadow, so we don't want a very bright highlight here, but we do want to add a little bit. It's cool that you got some limited minis, though. I just ordered some limited busts myself, or I should say my fiance just ordered for Christmas for me some limited busts. So I'm looking forward to that. But I have a lot of really pretty stuff to paint. So David and I kind of go back and forth in the evenings. When we're really into a computer game together, then we tend to do that. But when we're pretty much disgusted with the computer game we're playing, then we go back to painting in the evenings more. So I think we're slowly shifting toward the painting in the evenings more at this point, because he wants to get things done for Golden Demons at Adepticon in April. So gonna have to swap over and actually do some painting at some point if he wants to get things done. There, good enough. Excellent. So we got all of our black done, and now we have time. So what should we do next? What do you guys want me to do? Do you want me to start blocking in NMM? Do you want me to tackle the bone staff here? Ah, yeah. GW Blood Bowl team, yep. Yeah. Cool. We'll do the staff. One thing I do want to do is grab a file. I think I have some rough spots here. I want to file them down a bit. Files on Bones Black can be kind of but we'll work with it. Diamond files are pretty fine, so hopefully we'll be all right. Oh, I actually was using Death Knight Black mixed with Pure White. Grey Wolf for the black. Black, Death Knight Black mixed with 1 drop of Pure White, 4:1. 2 brushfuls of that, another brushful of Pure White over here. Flasks are pretty boring, actually, I think. I'm just going to try to bring in a file and just... Some of these, there's a little bit of some gritty edges here on the bone, on the skull and stuff. I just want to take those off, and I'm hoping that this diamond file will help me to do that. Yeah, I think it is. This is a really fine grit diamond file, so it should help take down any coarse grit left behind from my previous cleaning process. All right, that looks all pretty good. I hear a very angry squirrel outside my window. I wonder who is stealing his acorns. I have a black squirrel in my yard now, which is actually pretty cool. There's a gray one and a black one. There we go. Excellent. So clean that up just a little bit. Bones USA is the best quality, I think, Dr. SAL. I like the casting process and the quality of the plastic, and the detail is the best. But the Bones Black, this is like, of all of the iterations of this character, the Bones Black is very good on this model. So Reaper is, the only problem with Bones USA is it doesn't have a lot of selection yet because it's done on site at Reaper and they only have a few machines. Yeah, he is really angry. Like, there's an angry, and he's the boy squirrel. The boy squirrel is always angry. And then I've got two little girl squirrels, one black and one gray. But boy squirrel gets up there and pretty much says, "Get off my lawn," every morning. But yeah, so Bones Black is very good, Dr. Aziel. I think that we're painting a Bones USA as well. I've got actually a whole bunch of stuff that we're painting. We're painting metal, we're painting original bones, we're painting resin, and we're painting Bones Black and Bones USA on this stream. I've got a 6 model rotation. So the Bones USA we're painting is this guy, is Darius the Blue. And we're just working on his blue cloth texturing last stream. He actually, nope, we're doing the bust on Monday. He'll be on Tuesday this coming week. But yeah, Bones Black is a definite step up from regular bones, although regular bones for very large models I find is just fine. It's actually a different form of casting entirely, Dr. Aziel. So the machines that are used to produce the two things are completely different. The plastic is different. Completely different. Everything is different. Like, it's like comparing Bones USA to Bones Black is like comparing metal to resin. Like, it's really two different processes and two different materials. Bones USA is what Reaper would like to hard commit to, but it's just small. It's slow to scale up as the machines have like a limited like memory capacity, and they're limited in size and stuff like that. And so Reaper's working with the maker of the machines to try to essentially enable them to scale up. Because we really like the Bones USA. It's if you go to ReaperCon ever, you can take a tour and see how we make them. It's actually pretty cool. I did it this ReaperCon. All right, I want bone. Let's see. What are we going to start with our I want to use a different kind of brown. Should I use nut brown? Yeah, I feel like nut brown's a good choice for this. So I start. We don't get red. We don't have red squirrels here that I've seen. But the gray ones have a little brown on them sometimes, but that's it. Then we don't have the really red ones. So I think they're a separate species. But we have black. And I think the black and gray squirrels are pretty much the same. It's just a black genetic, a recessive gene. So I like nut brown for this, I think. It's an interesting brown. It's warm. It's neutral enough, I think, to go well with the skin here. Let's get our big black base so you guys can see the color. There we go. So that's nut brown, and this is 9427, nut brown. I think that's going to be a good start. I like to start bone with a darker brown, because then you can build up the highlights. Plus, anything that's like a staff like this would probably have gotten some, just gook and stuff down in the cracks. It would be darker in the cracks. It would be more polished all along where he's been handling it. Oh, you think so, Dr. Aziel? As far as like painting it in blocks? I do that a lot. Here's some more examples. So yeah, compared to especially I think a lot of the European painters who block in the entire thing, and actually my fiance, who is also, he paints very European style, he'll block in an entire model and then he'll start working on it. But I tend to isolate areas, and that's a weird psychological thing with me, actually, Dr. Aziel, and that the reason for it, I kind of psychoanalyzed myself, but the reason I do it is that often I don't have a lot of time to paint in any given day. And so if I feel like I'm not making progress on a model, it'll get very frustrating and I'll want to quit. So the way I got around that with myself was to just work on one area and finish it. And so then even if I still have a lot to go on the model, I've at least finished one area to a point where I'm happy with it. And that keeps me going. So that's why I do this weird, kind of painting in sections thing. Oh, have a good weekend too, Turgeon. Yeah, and all Reaper paint. Yeah, Henry. I did say this yesterday, but if I had to, like, if Reaper Master Series dropped off the face of the earth, Henry, I would use Scale Color Artist, the tubes. I love the finish of this because it's matched with Master Series. So I like, one of the reasons I love MSP is that it's got a certain level of matte that makes the details stand out crisply, and that the tube paint there, the Scale Color Artist, that is the same finish. So I really, really enjoyed those paints if I had to use another line. But keep in mind, Henry, I'm the person who actually created this paint line for Reaper. So I actually made Master Series paints, like, from day one. I, like, formulated them and chose the bases and made all the colors and hand mixed every batch for 15 years. So I am biased to the huge extent that I made this paint line, and I made it to pretty much be the thing that I like my ideal paint line. So if I didn't use it, it'd be pretty sad. It would mean I failed. Yeah, as Grey Wolf says, I built the MSP line. It is my baby. It is what I have given to the hobby after, years of being in it. I'm going to thin down this nut brown just a little bit and put it all over that bone. And we'll probably bring it up with much a yellowish bone color, maybe even yellowed bone 9143, which I've been using a lot lately. Yeah, so like I said, the Scale Color Artist is the other line that I like, and I usually try almost all the other lines out there, Henry. Like, while I was making MSP for Reaper, I definitely tried every paint line that came out because I wanted to know what the competition was doing and be aware of it. So I have experimented with a lot of different paint lines, and there's stuff I like and dislike, about every line. But in general, I find that most of the paint lines out there are made by only only a couple companies are out there making paint for the hobby market. So a lot of the same people who make, Vallejo might also make, Creature Caster, or, the stuff like that happens a lot. Like, there's just a couple of main paint companies in Europe. Reaper is different because they set out to make their own paint department so they could create their own paint line from the ground up, because when they started, they didn't realize that people weren't doing it that way. They didn't realize that companies would just contract an existing paint company to do their line. So Reaper spent all this money and got themselves tooled up, and then they realized they could have just farmed it out. But they had all the stuff, so they just kept going. So Reaper's paint is completely different from anything else on the planet because we do it ourselves, in-house. Yeah, I'm glad that we're different. Like, you need, like, there are things the other paint lines are good at, but there are also things they're not that good at. And I feel like Master Series is the right step in the other direction. So if I was, like, and I am kind of a freelancer. I'm still a Reaper employee right now, but, like, I do use a little bit of Scale 75, like I said. And if I was a real freelancer, maybe I would use a little bit of everything. But I find that for the most part, MSP is what I'm like. It fits what I want. I seldom have to reach outside of it. The only color that I use with any, like, extreme frequency that is made by a company other than Reaper is the Scale 75 Burnt Umber. Just because that was a color I was looking for, a pigment I was looking for so long for a Master Series, but we just never could get, like, what I had in my head, and it just wasn't like, available that I could find. So Scale 75 did do it, so now I'm all about it. So this is a pretty warm brown. We'll see how this works, and I may have to shade it down with some brown liner and then bring it up with some bone color. But we're going to start with this. I do love nut brown. It is a really interesting brown. Let's see here. Yeah. It has a hint of purple to it. I actually based this color on an old ink I used to use back in the dawn of time when inks were still used as washes. It's a little lighter than that ink, but it's got that same almost purpley look to it. So it's one of those weird browns. Weird browns that I didn't get to put out in the core series, but that came out in the Bones series. So we got that blocked in. That's good. I think I am going to do, for the rest of the stream, I am going to take some brown liner, or do I want to use the Death Knight? Maybe I'll do kind of a combo. I mix liners a lot. I used to actually mix brown liner and blue liner a lot to create more of a neutral black liner. So that's something you can absolutely do. Hold on, I got a little bit of a tilt. So I'm going to do maybe 3-4 drops of Death Knight with 1 drop of brown liner, which is still going to put me toward the cold end of things. Brown liner, though, has a slightly higher coverage than Death Knight, so I'm hoping to pull some of that in without shifting the color. Metallics are some of the easiest stuff to make, Dr. Asael. The challenge is finding the flake that you want and like learning. You really have to learn color interactions at that point, like how pigment interacts, like how colors interact when they're mixed, to get certain results for metallics. But I mean, metallics are interesting because the flake is definitely a color. It acts almost like a pigment. It almost acts like the base of the pigment. So like if you're using a gold flake, you're starting with that yellow flake, and so you have to act like you actually are mixing colors into a yellow paint. So it's very interesting. I don't remember. I've tried a scale, color, regular paints, both fantasy and their other lines. I don't remember if I ever tried their metallics. I kind of got the impression they were very much like Vallejo metallics, but maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't paint with metals a lot because I often go for NMM instead because I like the control and the fact that it photographs better. So if I do fall down on anything, although I did try a couple of the Creature Caster metallics because they had some interesting colors that I hadn't seen before. They did some very interesting colors. I forget what their line is called, but it's the line that Creature Caster puts out. They had a couple of very interesting metallics. But yeah, the thing with metallics, Dr. Asael, is you're limited. Like with Reaper, we're limited because we try to keep everything very non-toxic because we know a lot of kids use our product. So metallic flakes they're very split as far as what you can do if you want to stay non-toxic. If you're willing to kind of ignore the toxicity issues, you can actually get some better metallics. And you can get some very good metallics indeed if you're willing to ignore like water-based and just go for solvent-based. Probably the most realistic metallic finishes can be achieved with solvent-based paints. But I and Reaper never really wanted to mess with solvents. And we wanted to keep our product kid-friendly. So I was very much looking for inert flakes. And so that limited somewhat Reaper's metallic, like what we could do essentially. Cut off for Reaper to send paints to Michigan. When you're starting to get well below 0, I would stop, Henry. If you're still like hovering in the 30s, you should be fine. Because paint has to deep freeze to be forced out of solution. So unless you leave it on your porch for 2 days at 31 or 30 degrees, you're probably okay. But if it's in the 20s and it's consistently in the 20s, you're in a lot more danger. So if you are still in the 30 degree, 40 degree area, or if you're hovering in the 30s right now, you should be fine. I would order now though. Or if when you get a warm spell, order and choose 2-day or something. I'm just using this liner color that I mixed up to start bringing some shadows into this. Yeah, it's more your judgment call. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even one of the core members, Dr. Asael. With Reaper, I joined in 2003. So my next year is my 19-year anniversary with Reaper. But Reaper's been around for a lot longer than that. And there are people at Reaper who have been around longer than I have. For sure. I think Reaper's headed toward its 30-year anniversary. Am I right, guys? So I have not... I'm not nearly one of the... When I came on, it's a good bellwether to kind of say Reaper was a pretty small company. I came on when they were still in Louisville, right before they built the big factory in Denton. So they were still established. They were a very established miniature company when they added me on. Otherwise, they would never have added me on, because a very small miniatures company doesn't need a staff painter. Oh, yeah, for sure. I definitely made a huge contribution to Reaper, and Reaper has been a fantastic company to work for. Like, they've been great to me. Like, Ed and I are still, like, he called up the other day just to chat. So he's our CEO. And so I always had a good relationship with Ed and Dave and the other employees at Reaper. And it was definitely like I was there for so long, right? All my formative years, all through my 30s, I worked for Reaper. So they got some really good years out of me, and I got some really good years working for them. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the hobby industry and the miniatures industry in particular from Ed, who was like one of the more knowledgeable people when it comes to judging that industry and the state of things. It's always interesting to talk industry with Ed, if you ever get the chance to do it. Like, ask him what direction he sees things going, and, you know, he's got a very good instinct. He's helped guide Reaper through all these years where other companies just, you know, died. Reaper has managed to stay afloat. Yeah, I hope you do, Geltip. If you have any questions about them, like, you know, shake well. I will say that. Definitely shake well your first time using them. But after that, you shouldn't have to shake them very much, because Reaper's a little more fluid in the base than a lot of others. It's not as thick. And that means you don't have to shake as much. And it also means it doesn't fall out of solution as much. Yeah, right. Yeah, we're about to end the stream. I was just like finishing my shading on the staff that I blocked in. So I'm bringing in this blue indigo shading here. Let me see if you guys can see it there. Because that brown is reading a little lighter than I thought, and I'm bringing in that cold shadow, kind of doing a little bit of lining around the bone. We'll still keep this brown here as one of the kind of the shadows as well, but I went a step darker just to try to bring out all these nice little bony details. And put a dark shadow around the hand here. And I'll put a dark shadow under here. And that's pretty much where we're going to stop it. Monday is bust day, guys. We're back to our bust and our prep work. This time we'll work on the main part of the bust, the body and the head. We did the hat last time. And the scarf, and that was fun. We're almost done with our prep. Like this week, or next week, Monday, we'll be done with our prep work on the bust. So to refresh memories, let's grab it. So on Monday, come on back, same time. We have our bust that we are working on. You see all our green work that we did before, and now we've got to tackle some mold line. We'll probably get the grinder out and tackle this mold line. This is a resin piece. So yeah, on the other side, we have a little bit of mold line, but not a lot, and it's actually pretty perfect up here. It's really good. So not anything really to do up here, but we have a little bit of a mold line down here on the base, on the plinth as well, you can see. So we may do some green down there because that's a little awkward to hit. Got a couple of pits to fill and stuff like that. So we'll be working with green stuff and with our grinder and files and all sorts of stuff on Monday. She's even got a little pit on her eyebrows, so we're gonna have to go in and correct that. So yes. Yes. Oh yeah, monthly newsletter. Definitely subscribe. We do not spam you. So the Q&A stuff, as Quindy says, on the website. But yeah, thanks everybody, and I hope you all have a fantastic weekend and a great Friday for however much of it you have left. And 3 p.m. today for Reaperland, where, you know, John and Dave will talk about minis. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for coming out. I'll see you all on Monday.